Okay, so what is land preservation? I wanted to explain a little bit why I use that term in particular, which is different from what I've said before when I was looking, showing you that map of protected lands. So when I say land preservation, I mean specifically what is done through the Land Conservancy and through the county's Ag Land Preservation Program, which we believe is the only permanent method of protecting open space in perpetuity. And it's done through a voluntary decision by a property owner who decides that they want their farm or their forest land or whatever their property is to stay as it is forever. And the way they would do that is by limiting things such as subdivision, limiting how much impervious coverage can be built on the property. So that's things like rooftops, pavement, driveways. And then also we do that through limiting certain kinds of activities that would be harmful towards the open space we're trying to preserve. So typically conservation easements prohibit things like oil and gas extraction, waste and dumping is kind of an obvious one. And they also often require that landowners follow certain management practices to make sure that the open space characteristics are protected. So a farm usually has to have a conservation plan. And if someone has forest land, they would have to get a forest management plan if they plan to do a timber harvest. So we are also trying to get landowners to use best management practices on their property. And this is in forever, or sorry, is in perpetuity. So what it's not. I also want to talk a little bit about things that often are confused with land preservation and what we do. People often think, oh, my property's in clean and green, or it's in the ag conservation zone in my township, so it's protected. But and those programs are helpful, but they're in no way as permanent or as they don't protect land as well as what conservation easements do. So Clean and Green is a state program that is enacted at the county level, and it is a benefit to landowners and farmers in particular by giving them lower property taxes based on the use of their land, not the highest and best use or market value or development potential. So in that way, it encourages landowners and to keep their property as a farm by discouraging development on that. And I'll get into Clean Green a little bit later. Zoning, like I said, there are often zoning districts called ag preservation or land conservation, but those are created at the municipal level. So at this point, Adams County does have some work going on with joint comprehensive planning. We don't have any joint zoning ordinances yet, but the county does highly encourage regional planning. But because the issue is that when every municipality does it at the local level, they're not necessarily thinking about land use practices of their neighbors. And so planning is not efficient. And there's not any regional coordination. The other thing is that ordinances change periodically, and they should. So just because a property is in ag conservation today doesn't mean that in 10 years that district might be changed and it will become a residential area or an industrial area. And that happens all the time. I think, right now, if you read the Gettysburg Times, you've been seeing news in Conewago Township where there was some farmland that was put into a commercial district, and now there's new supervisors who want to put it back into agricultural districts. So in no way is zoning a permanent protection for open space. And then lastly, ag security areas. So this is another statewide program that municipalities can enroll into, but it's a benefit to farmers, and it limits things like some nuisance complaints and makes it harder to use eminent domain and condemnation on farmland, but it's not a permanent protection of that land.